One story that I wanted to ask your take on, the Mika and I forget the husband's name, Stouffer
James, yeah.
story. With that is one of the saddest. It is so. That's where they adopted a son with special needs from China named Huxley, and then essentially realized they could not
Yeah.
manage him.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess if you could tell me what the blowback was, I don't quite recall.
Yeah, so he just kind of slowly was disappearing from their content and like they weren't posting him and people were like, "Where's Huxley? Where's Huxley?" Like people made entire like Instagram accounts dedicated to like trying to like sleuth where he had gone. And eventually the parents came online and said like, Huxley had issues that we weren't capable of dealing with and developmentally and disability wise, and he has gone to live with another family who is more equipped to handle his special needs. And I think like that is obviously like a deeply heartbreaking decision to have to make. I think what that story speaks to is the parasocial relationship that these parents fostered between this child and the fans because I mean they took fans on the whole journey. Like they took them through vlogs, like through the experience of applying for adoption, of home visits, of going to China to pick the boy up, of there was this one point where you could buy like buy something that would translate to a puzzle piece that when the puzzle was put together it would show his face and that was like his face reveal. So it's like you you got people so connected to this child. And then there was also the blowback of like, okay, so you're not parenting him anymore, but you still have content about him online that's getting you money. So you're still profiting off of him.
Wonder how different it would be, or whether it would be different if the content that she had been writing about was her experience of adopting a child with special needs, and the difficulties, and then going through the pain of realizing I'm not capable of doing this. But like to your point, the people who consume these channels, they feel this like intense emotional connection to this child who is now going away.
Yeah.
So to them, it plays into like, well, what would I do?
It's, like, difficult because I think a lot of people judge her for that decision, but I think, like,
Mhm.
I can't imagine being in that position, and I can't imagine that, like, maybe it was better for him to be with a family who was, like, specifically trained to handle, like, this kind of disability, but I think, like, this is the thing is, like, when you invite people into your life, like, you never know what that relationship will become and how intense it will become, and I think we saw this also with Emily Kaiser, which I write about in the book. She is a huge influencer, she has millions of followers, and her 3-year-old son, Trig, drowned and died last summer. I know, and it was a total frenzy online because at first, his name wasn't released, but on Arizona local news, like, the outside of her house was shown, and people online were like, "That's Emily's house." Like, "That's Emily's house, and Emily's not posting, and she posts every day, and why isn't she posting, and her friends aren't posting, it has to be Trig." And so, like, for days, there was this, like, sleuthing, trying to figure out if it really was this child, and then it turned out that it was, and he died a few days later, and when that was announced, like, people were, like, posting Instagram videos of themselves, like, sobbing and, like, montages of, like, videos and pictures of him taken from Emily's account, and, like, I even found an account that was, like, pretending to be Emily posting about her son who had died, and, like, the the level of, like, parasociality was, like, literally so insane, and, like, Emily herself, when she came back to social media, she said, like, "This made me realize, like, how intense this is," and now she doesn't show her younger son online. She still, like, posts all the time, but she doesn't show him, and she doesn't really talk about him. Um, but I think it just goes to show that, like, when these parasocial bonds get that strong, like, you never know where it'll end up, you know?
Yeah. And then I mean, I know we keep saying this, but then there's also so much pressure on mothers to perform how good of a mother they are, and if the less they show their child, the more it's like, "Well, why aren't you showing them? Is there anything wrong?" And you don't care about them, and you don't spend time with them. So it seems just like an impossibly difficult position. Are there any did you find in your research any influencers in this space that seem genuinely at peace?
So I think it's hard to be completely at peace when you know people are, like, talking about what a terrible exploitative parent you are, and I think most of them had instances where they've second guessed whether they want their kids online or not, but at the same time, like, you've created this entire life around this, like, you've made tons of money, you've moved into a new house, you've bought a new car, you don't have a traditional job anymore, so, like, there's less room for misgiving because, like, your entire life has been built around this at this point.